Hi, this is Jamie Portman, the Principal of XP and XP East. I just wanted to take this opportunity to guide you through the arrangements for the first week back. As you know, we're returning after lockdown and it is the week beginning 22nd of March. And we are back together in Crewe, and with regards to that first day back, the government stated that pupils should return to face-to-face education following their first negative test result. And we've got a mass testing provision in school that will last for just 2 weeks. And then the government has stated that they would like students to do home tests after that first 2 weeks, because they will be tested actually 3 times during that period. We will organise passing the tests on, but for now we're going to just concentrate on the first week back. Now, as you may or may not be aware, we've got about 700 children and adults go to our schools, and that's presenting us with a considerable challenge of how do we get all that testing done and how do we get it done safely. And after reflecting on this after a period of time, we feel that we have to stagger the return due to the fact that so many students must be tested before normal lessons can resume. And there may be some frustrations out there with regards to that staggered approach, because we just want to get things back to normal as quickly as possible. But we've come up with this plan here that should allow us to do this as safely as possible. So what we've got here is we've prioritised it so that our year 11 students and our A-level students will actually come into school at 8:30. And that will allow us to get students registered, and they will conduct their test. And we want year 10 students to come in at 10:45, and we also want year 9 students to come in at 12:30. Now, I need to say at this moment in time that we need year 9 students to have their lunch at home before coming into school, because we've not got the capacity to be able to arrange for students to have their lunch and keep them safe with regards to whether they've got coronavirus or not, unfortunately. And we will need year 7 and year 8 to have an additional holiday day, because we just can't get the testing done. We've also got here for Tuesday, we would like year 7s to come in at 8:30, which will allow us to get the registration process and the testing in place, and also year 8 for 10:15. The other year groups, because they will have had their test result, they can come in as normal at 8:30. Okay, so when students actually come into school, they will be greeted by staff and directed to Crewe rooms, because in order for us to prevent a year group being sent home right from day one, in case we do have a positive test, we're actually going to arrange bubbles into Crewe bubbles. This is actually a Crewe bubble of 12 or 13 students. They will come into school, they will be in their Crewe room, they will stick together as a Crewe room, as a Crewe, and they will engage in the testing registration procedure. Now, it's really important that you've given consent for this to be done. The last time I looked, we're up to something like 94%. There's just a small number of consent that needs to be given. But students will engage in testing registration process with support of the Crewe leaders. We've made it so it's a really simple procedure. Then what will happen is students will be collected by a member of staff who will escort the Crewe bubble to the mass testing area in XP's drama studio. As I mentioned before, we've had the provision in XP East during the lockdown period. We've had the mass testing process for students who are in that provision and for staff, and we're very familiar with the process. But as I said before, this is all about students being in a Crewe bubble. Once students have had their test, and they get the result back, the result tends to take only about 30 minutes by the so-called lateral flow tests. Then when we've got all the negatives in place, then they can begin to form the year bubble, and they'll go into their lessons. Now, normal lessons will begin after lunch for year 10 and year 11 on that first day. But as I said, just to refer you back, and this is on the blog post as well, please pay close attention to the start times for the individual year groups. And if there are any questions or any tricky situations, please get in touch with your Crewe leader, or email myself at jportman@xpschool.org, and we will happily sort any issues out. The last thing, which is a significant change to the government guidance from before, is that they are stating it is now strongly recommended that face coverings should now also be worn in classrooms. And that's different from before, but we are expecting students to wear masks in classroom settings, and as before, they should also be worn on corridors whilst queuing for lunch, movement from classroom to classroom. They obviously take the mask off when they sit down for lunch, but I'm also going to go through some of the key aspects of the existing provision. If you're familiar with everything from what it was like before, I'm only going to skim through them, then you can end the video now. But I just really want to state that we will get additional information out with regards to the home testing kits, but over the first 2 weeks, students will be tested in school, but it's really important that they can't go into lessons until they've had that first test, hence this staggered approach. Okay, moving on, you will remember that students end school at a staggered time. That's to restrict movement around school, and that's exactly the same. Again, you'll be familiar that we were able to get permission from Doncaster Rovers for this away fans car park to be used for XP East. That will continue to be the same. Parents of XP, please continue to use car park 3. I'm not going to go through every aspect of the map, but you will be obviously familiar that when students go into their year bubbles, they are based in specific areas of each school. So, for example, here at Year 8 are in the first floor of XP East, Year 9 in that area there, and so forth. So that's exactly the same. It's the same procedure for breaks and lunch. Each year group will have their own designated space. At breaks and lunch times, we've got to be really strict with year bubbles not mixing together. So no other year group should go into that designated area. Lunch will be organised into 2 different sittings, as highlighted here. So Year 7, they have the lunch at 12 o'clock, along with Year 10 and Year 11. We have got the daily menu in place for the first couple of weeks, but then we are able to get the full normal menu after that period of time, once we've sussed out any complications. But we will be returning to that full menu that we normally have pre-lockdown. You remember that teachers aren't actually part of a year bubble. Although they are largely allocated to a wider phase, which tends to be 2 year groups. Apart from Year 7, that's 1 phase across both schools. But teachers are expected to socially distance themselves with other adults and children within a preferred 2 metre distance. And then finally, just other things to consider. We haven't got extended study or after school clubs, but we are reviewing possibilities around this and want to see what we can do for that. I'm really keen to get something going for that. Same with exploring possibilities for music. Also, we know all of our students have got devices. They should bring them charged. We need to get the kids back into the routines of charging those devices, whether it's an iPad or a laptop. We've got to get back on top of getting routines for getting the basic equipment right for pen, pencil, etc. And also, because we've got student devices in school, mobile phones shouldn't be seen in lessons or at breaks or at lunchtime, and they should be put away in school bags. So, as mentioned before, dead excited to get the kids back. It's been such a very, very long 9 weeks of a term. But we can't wait to get everybody back, and we're going to do that as safely as possible. So thank you to parents for all the support that you're giving us in terms of the encouragement, the emails that you send us. Any problems, please get in touch with crew leaders in the first instances. Okay, we'll see you after the holiday.